Goremongers are a fast, elite, aggressive melee team that require the careful management of a valuable resource, Gore tanks, for them to operate at their best. Being confident in Gore tanks and your chosen TAC-op will be the key to winning with this team. Recon is a favourite, and if you don't have a strategy of your own worked out, Recon's confirmed kill is extremely good and works with how this team's entire rule set is written: get kills, score points. Alternatively, if the enemy is stronger than you, beacons will allow you to play a more considered game. Sangua Vite has 6 abilities, all of which are strong, but for your first few games, Mania and Fury are the best to keep in mind. Mania is +1 APL. Fury is fight again, and the second fight is free. Until you're comfortable with the army, focus on just those 2. Don't forget that this is an all melee team. with the only way they can fight more than once being Fury. So unlike with Marines, +1 APL doesn't mean you can attack more. Shooting with an auto pistol is almost never worth it. As an elite melee team, you will need to spend 1 CP from turn 2 onwards on Gory Tenacity, which halves the first damage taken whenever you fight or retaliate. This team is positioned in the meta to be slightly above average, and ultimately their playstyle is relatively simple, so we should expect to see them doing quite well with lower skill players, middle skill players, and of course upper skill players, which means they might come out of the gates swinging pretty hot, but once people learn how to deal with them, they will be manageable. But because it's one of those teams where you can just charge and things die, they're not going to totally suck. Before we continue, don't forget to check out my other Blood and Zeal content. I've done a review, I've done an unboxing, I've of course done all the Sanctifier stuff, and maybe some battle reports later in the week, who knows. And I've done a little bit of a hobby guide for those that are thinking of proxies or just want to know how to best build these out of the box. Kill Team Bling, isn't that fun? This is an all-in-one travel solution. He does custom dice tray artwork. You've got a cool magnetized sheet there, and you have an additional floor for random storage of stuff. He also sells these poker chip style base steppers, which is really fun. There's also a Crossfire Games who do some really good objective markers. Everybody needs objective markers. They also do token caddies. He does the default token caddy, like this one here, to carry your cardboard tokens, but he also does this one, which is for his own faction specific token sets. However, I'm actually using this to transfer some buy the same token tokens, which actually I think are really, really good. They're super vibrant on the tabletop, unmistakable. They do a whole load of crazy things. For example, this is my Tau Pathfinder leader, Chasui Chaslar Boy, whatever. And they actually happen to do marker-like tokens that match with my funky neon blue bases. They do a whole bunch of stuff. I've also managed to get a 5 or 10% discount code for all of these products, all pinned in the top comment below. Go check these out if they're of interest to you. Back to the video. And before we get straight into the mechanics, let's have a quick think about the models themselves. The first thing to note is that there are 8 models in total, and every single one of them is on a 32mm base. When you're then thinking about proxies or how to add additional models, you've got to think of a few different things. First things first, the base models are of course focused on jackals, which are a World Eaters kit. In this box you can either build your 6 individual models and then 2 aspirants, but you do have the ability to actually take 4 aspirants into the game. If you want, you can go out and buy a box of regular World Eater jackals and simply do an arm swap, and I've done it myself. It's actually very simple and easy with the regular jackals kit. All you'll need is a nice sharp pair of clippers and to liberally apply sprue goo, and you really can't go too far wrong. Just do keep in mind that the jackal kit they are on 28mm bases, so you will need to bump them up to a 32mm base, which actually works just fine because the Goremongers are a very dynamic, jumping off of things kit where everybody is quite tall, whereas the jackal kit, they are all quite reserved in a sense and not jumping all over the bloody place. So simply taking a jackal and placing it on top of a 32mm base makes everything work. You can also think about what else would you like to proxy this team as. You can do anything. Them being on a 32mm base is very, very good when it comes to proxy type situations. My first immediate thought would be I've been wanting to run Warlocks for Eldar. Warlocks are on a 32mm base, they're super cool, and if you look at those sculpts, they do look very much like they are melee, and this is a melee team. So my initial thought is going all Warlocks so I can do a nice cool Warlock Coven, and instead of Sangua Vite, they're just charging up their runes of power and battle and foresight and stuff. Each operative has a Gore tank, and you can spend its contents to gain Sangua Vite, a powerful rule. Gore tanks provide a limited resource for each operative, which should be spent wisely. They can, however, regain this resource by incapacitating operatives, so you can often spend to regain, or save it and gain even more, unlocking more powerful Sangua Vite rules for later. Effectively managing Gore tanks is essential to getting the best out of this team, as once the tanks run dry, your team will lose momentum. Sangua Vite rules are a toolbox of special rules for you to use. For example, you can control charge distances against a fast or dangerous melee team, knowing you can surge for +1 inch move. When outnumbered, you can use Fury to fight multiple times, cutting through a number of weak operatives in one activation. When fighting up against a tougher opponent, you can Rake to inflict some initial damage, or Rage to get an extra attack. Experiment with the different Sangua Vite rules and become familiar with the right ones to use against each opponent. As keeping your Gore tanks topped up is key, the Inciter and Bloodtaker operatives and the Bloody Cadaver equipment are important ways to increase your Gore tanks. If you use these rules correctly, you can maintain the Gore tank levels of other key operatives, ensuring you've got enough Gore for a big play. These operatives can also focus on objectives, freeing your other operatives up for attacking. Being a melee-focused group of operatives can mean you're vulnerable to shooting teams, so careful positioning and the right use of conceal orders is required to keep your operatives alive as you close the distance. At just 8 operatives, your team is more elite, so you often won't have the numbers to trade. Against teams with more operatives, your own will have to incapacitate multiple enemies during the game. 8 operatives at an APL of 2 can put you at an action deficit, especially in missions that require mission actions. At times you may have to show restraint, keeping your Goremongers on a tight leash to better achieve your objectives. The Mania Sangua Vite rule can get you the extra AP you need to do mission actions. Furthermore, a big play with a Goremonger can create enough of a distraction to divert your opponent away from your other operatives, who can be scoring your crit op and mission marker VPs. When you need to move your operatives out into the open, this team has a few rules that can help you out. Firstly, the Runes of Khorne faction rule means a Goremonger can't lose more than 8 wounds per shoot action. This can force your opponent to double up on shooting, using more than one operative/shoot action to incapacitate your operatives. This can spare your other operatives from shots that would otherwise come their way. What's more, the timely use of the Rejuvenate Sangua Vite rule can push a wounded operative back over the Runes of Khorne threshold, starting the process again. Secondly, the Impaler is a useful operative for dragging the enemy closer, moving them off objectives and keeping them alive to set up charges. Don't forget, wounding and dragging an expended operative can provide a safe charge for a Goremonger, as they can't normally be shot within control range. They can then later incapacitate their prey, top up their Gore tank, then charge further into enemy lines. Setting this up, then using the Hunt for Blood strategy ploy or the Aspirant Operative's Obsessive Bloodlust rule is a great combo for keeping the pressure on. To sum up, Goremongers like nothing better than fighting up close. You'll have to show some initial restraint by carefully managing your actions, Gore tanks, and when to charge. Once you do, let the bloodletting begin and feast on the Gore. Blood for the Blood God. Goodbye.